Hello, welcome back to My Divine Light with Patty and Lance Lamons. And we are now up to chapter 6 in Lance and my book, You Are Divinely Made. The chapter is called I Am Immutable. And as usual, it opens with a beautiful introduction if Lance would like to read it.
Okay, I will read it for you. Welcome, everyone. Proud to be here with you. And this is the opening statement to the chapter 6, which is I Am Immutable. Robust synchronistic energy, Alpha and Omega, the one Christ self, we give thee our deepest admiration, knowing he who has started must be he who ends. He who left heaven is the one who returns. Now is the appointed time to return to this one, so we might rise again to live. For even though I die, I shall live again. Okay? So, in our last segment, we talked about shifting over, and the whole book, You Are Divinely Made, is about shifting out of the worldview into the view of the fourth dimension, or what we call spiritual view or spiritual sight. And in our last segment, we talked about the worldview is all about what you can get out of the world, what you can get during this lifetime. And we talked about how we're going to shift out of that into I am. Meaning instead of I need or I want, we shift into I already am. Instead of I want to be rich, understanding I am rich. I don't want to be healthy, I am healthy, regardless of the appearance. And so we talked about how the appearance only shows what you filled your mind with, your individual mind. What you've allowed that to fill with is what you're experiencing as this world. And that's what we call the appearance, or what you sense with your five senses. And so you cannot judge by that. And through developing a relationship with your inner God, and each one of us has this inner God, and through that relationship, you begin to understand and you begin to hear it within yourself that I am all that I am seeking. And I think Rumi said it quite well. What you are seeking is what is seeking you. And so we talked about that last time, how this inner God is waiting and wants to bring itself into your life and fill you with what your deepest desires are, what brings you joy and excitement. And so that is the first major shift that we talked about in this book. Going out from world ideas into these new spiritual ideas. And now in this chapter, we're taking a step further. And we're understanding that I am immutable. And that means that this inner God is the true I that I am. It is the I who thinks. It is the I who moves. It is the I who feels. This I, this self, that is beyond all form and all mind, all intellect, is this inner God. And its intelligence and its activity has always been part of our lives. And it has in it the perfect idea of our individual life embedded in it, the perfect pattern of who we are. And by developing this relationship with this inner God, we come to know what that perfect idea is. And that happens a little at a time, typically. Very rarely does it happen quickly. And so there's these tools that we've been given. Again, Rumi said it quite nicely. From the moment you came into this manifest world, a ladder was given for your escape. And so we have these processes that we use to move us out of this mortal thinking into this spiritual thinking. And we already have all that God has given us, all that God made us as, is intact. It's immutable, unchangeable, and it's never lost, and it's never malfunctioning. So, but we've been tricked into this idea that life can malfunction. And because we've taken on that idea, that attitude, then this has filled our minds with those ideas, and that has projected itself as our experience. And that's the appearance. And so now we're going to transition out of that and start to transition into our immutable self. This fixed self that never changes, it never varies, it never wavers. But the outer forms are always changing. Our feelings, our thoughts, our bodies, and our world experiences are in a constant state of change, constantly being renewed by this inner spirit. And so that's what we've been taught, that, and we've accepted the idea that we're the body, and that this body dies, and then maybe we get reincarnated again, and then we die again and get reincarnated again. But that is actually not the truth. The truth is this inner spirit is constantly recreating what we call body. and what we call world experience. And it's constantly being updated according to what our state of consciousness is. And so our state of consciousness has been the state of believing that we are merely human beings. Now, we're going through the state of being a human being, but that belief that that's all we are is keeping us locked into that state. And the human state has the ability to suffer. Not because that has anything to do with God, but because that's what we are filling our minds with. And so that's the experience we're having. Now we're learning how to go within and change that over into not having to die, not having a body that dies, having a body that changes and is constantly changing, but never dying. Now, so you can see how that is quite different than what the world has taught us. And it's not an easy concept to switch over from because we're so used to judging by appearances. But remember, our master teacher said, judge not by appearances. And that is a critical factor in transitioning out of this mortal living into immortal living. So that is one key factor that we have to really learn, that what we're sensing with our five senses, what we're seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling, all those things are only showing us what we filled the mind with. And once we are able to look out at the world and understand that, then we can start filling the mind with new ideas. And those new ideas can only come from God, because the world doesn't know anything about God. Now, there's books about God, there's lectures about God, and there's the truth about God, but it's only the truth about it. It's not the actual truth. And you have to learn to go within to get the real truth, which is within you, that will show you the true, authentic you, the authentic self of you, which is not your ego. The ego's in the mind, out in the intellectual mind. That's where the ego is. And that thinks that the self is the body and the mind. That's what the ego is. That's not your real self. Your real self knows that you're not the body and not the mind. And it has, from the one infinite God, has brought you, your individual perfect idea of you, into your individual expression of God. And it is waiting to come out into expression once you go in and get to know it, and then learn how to release it out into manifestation.
You had a good example last week when you were talking about, of course, to reiterate, I am eternal, we all are eternal. But you were mentioning to go into the fourth dimension to look at the way God looks at things. For instance, God has his divine idea of you and me and everyone, which is eternal consciousness. And you mentioned that unconditional love without making judgment results in having no choices, but you must still be in alignment. What does that mean? having no choices because you're in the perfect alignment with God. So you just serve the grace. And how is it important to come in from the point of view of the fourth dimension, which is looking through God's eyes?
Okay. That was a lot.
Not really. Not really. Just look
But
at it.
yes, a big part of it is learning to see through God's eyes and how God sees you. Um, Now, as far as choices go, uh, choice is the power of the soul. Um, so to say we have no choice. Now, the thing about it is, though, is we only have really two choices, and that is to listen what the world tells us, or to listen what God tells us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we finally decide and understand that the world doesn't know anything about what life is, and all the stuff it's been telling us is false, then you can start going within and listening to what God's idea and what God's view of the world is. And you begin to see through God's eyes. You begin to, and you can ask yourself, how does God see this world? What does God think I am? What does God think of me? What is my purpose? Since God created me, God must know what my purpose is. And somehow I have forgotten that. And so you get reestablished with your original self, which has always existed. But when you came into the world, into the manifest world, you and all of us forgot who we are. And so it's through meditation that is one of the tools that we use to get back into this view of the world through God's eyes.
Could you call it the true nature of life? Comes out through meditation.
Right, that's exactly right. You begin to realize the true nature of life, which is flowing from within you and unfolding as your outward experience. It's not passing by. It's not an already manifest world that's passing you by and you're watching it and participating with it. That part is the lie, the misconception.
You mentioned there were three aspects. The first aspect was spirit pressing to express and experience itself. That was the first aspect.
Right. God is pushing outward through his spirit to experience his creation, because God is his creation. God and God's creation are one. And his spirit is pushing outwardly to have that experience.
The second one was the divine idea of an individual expression with all its perfect qualities, pushing or moving toward its goal. Perfect plan appears in the field of mind.
So
God's mind?
This perfect idea that we talked about, that's the perfect idea of you, fits into God's perfect overall plan, God's divine plan for creation, you have a perfect place in that, and the perfect idea of how that fits in is in this spirit and is being brought into your mind through the spirit.
And that brings us to the third aspect, called a third aspect called mind becomes the soil where the seed of the divine idea is planted and grows into the already perfect spirit that you are. You already are perfect. That's why you never want to say, I want or I will try. So if you hear yourself say want and try, stop and think, because no, it already is. You already are. So that is how that's how the idea of the perfect divine idea grows in us.
Right. So the spirit brings this perfect divine idea into the mind, but now the soul, which is consciousness, the one that has the power of choice and the power of giving, and through that controls its own destiny, that divine idea in the mind has to be fed, watered, and taken care of in the mind in order to grow into experience. And although it's there and there's nothing interfering with it, but we're covering it over with all these world concepts, with all these world ideas about what life is. And so those we have to weed out. It's like pulling weeds out of your garden. You don't want the plant to get choked out. And so you pull the weeds. Well, these thoughts that come in from the world, we have to learn to reject them and tell them that they're not the truth, and close the door on world thought so that those don't cover up the plant and then a different plant grows up around the one perfect divine idea.
So you have to just keep remembering who and what you are, and that there are...
Right. So the watering is a metaphor for watering the mind with the truth. And the truth can only be gotten within. So that's the meditation where you have to go within and listen, develop a listening attitude where you're listening to your inner God and letting that reveal itself, which is the real truth. You can hear the truth with your mind, but that'll never solve the problem. That won't water the plant. It has to be watered from within. And so pulling out of the mind, out of the body, and realizing I am soul, and my soul has within it this divine spirit that has in it the perfect divine idea of who I am. And what is that? Asking that spirit to reveal it, listening for its response, watching for its response. And that waters the plant. And that brings nutrients to the plant. The nutrients of the mind, the real nutrients of the mind. The world cannot feed it. And that's why every plant that grows out of the world thought withers and dies because it doesn't have the real source of energy and substance that makes life grow. And that's why we die, basically, is because we're cut off from this inner source simply by listening to the world, by believing that the world knows what we don't know. We do know. We just don't know we know. And so we got to go within and realize that all the wisdom in the universe is available to us and actually is already within us. And it will start revealing itself as revelation through meditation. And then that feeds the plant. And so that's how it grows. But in the meantime, you have to keep plucking out the weeds and closing the door on world thoughts. Like Patty was saying, not I want, but I already am. I don't.
Divinely made.
I want to be clean. No, I am clean. I'm clean and pure. Now that may appear outwardly as a shower and soap, but that's okay. You know, it appears however it is for our current state of consciousness. So, but it's still coming through. It's just coming through in a way that we can deal with it at this time. We don't need water and soap. We're cleansed from within. But we haven't realized that. But we can learn to realize it. And it doesn't happen just with words. Just by saying, I am clean, doesn't make you clean. That's just but you can use that as a reminder. Oh, God cleanses me. I am cleansed. I am perfect, clear, clean human experience, and that will give you the feeling of it. If you keep reminding yourself of that truth, but it can't just be the words. The words aren't power. Thoughts aren't power. Actions aren't power. All power is within you, in this inner spirit that is within your soul. And so when you go within and you remind yourself, oh, I am already rich because God has already given me all that he has, and it's just waiting to come forth, then you can start to feel it. You can start feeling, oh, this is the truth. And as long as I am putting my attention on that part of me, that immutable me that is unchangeable, that is always been rich and is rich now and will always have everything that is ever needed or wanted, then that fills your mind, and in turn, that becomes your experience. But you got to stick with it, because there's too much of the world filling the mind right now. And it's a lot of it is settled down into the bottom part of your mind, which we call the subconscious. And so there's this analogy from the Vedic text where there's a barrel of water and it's under a tree and the leaves are falling down into the barrel, and your chore is to clean out that barrel because a lot of the leaves have settled down into the bottom and there's a big, thick, crusty part of the bottom of the barrel. And you've got to get it all cleaned out. Well, but as you're cleaning, more is falling into the barrel and more is settling down on the bottom. And as you go down and clean out the bottom, you're actually stirring up a lot of the soot that's down in the bottom of the barrel. And it's making the rest of the water dirty. So the analogy just is to make you understand this is a chore that you have to be determined to get it done. And it's a continual process. It's a day and night process. It's 24/7. The work is 24/7. And it's not about struggling to do it. It's about being alert and awake and aware and noticing when these thoughts come in that suggest that the things that you believe will bring you joy somehow cannot be done or cannot be done right away. And so there's, all these thoughts of resentment sometimes, fear, jealousies, all these type of things are coming from the world because the world believes that all the powers are in the world. But the truth is all powers are within us. And that is part of switching over from realizing what we want isn't out there. What we want is within us. Now, last segment, we talked about how I and the world are one. And so that's part of the realization. There's no me and the world. The world is who I am. The world is my extended body. And I can act in my world just as easily as I can act in my body once I accept that idea. And I mean really accept it, not just mentally accept it, but actually know it to be true. And you can only really know that through meditation. Now, meditation is, that's not just sitting down and being quiet. That's part of it. And that's a good way to start the day is to sit down and close your eyes and remember who you are. Remember that all that God has is already yours. You are God appearing as life. You are God's creation, and God is God's creation. So you are God. You are the face of God. And in that realization, that prepares you for the true meditation, which starts when you open your eyes and begin to move in the world. That's when the real meditation starts, because now you got to face the appearance. And when you face it, you got to know that the appearance is nothing more than a picture of what you've been filling the mind with. And now you're going to change what you're filling the mind with. You're going to fill the mind with who you really are, not what you've been told who you are. And so that switchover happens when you open your eyes after reminding yourself who you are with your eyes closed in meditation, and you're preparing yourself to open your eyes and live in that same attitude. So meditation is really an attitude towards life, a new attitude, not one that has to get something, not one that wants something, not one that is worried about something or is forceful in trying to manipulate.
God is eternal. He never has any anxious worry. He has no reason to have any
That's right.
anxious worry
And so,
or be in a hurry.
since God is not in a hurry,
Mhm.
and since God is not anxious for you, because God knows you're eternal, and even though you're having these experiences of suffering and dying, God knows that that's temporary, and you're eternal, and that is only just a small blip on the screen. And so he has no worry or anxiousness. He's not in a hurry. And he waits for us to bring him into our experience.
So when you have that deep concept of the nature of God, it makes it rather easy to turn away from the lies of the world and to realize what all the truth of life is. And you can do that by just saying, is that God's nature? And then ask yourself, is that his nature? And if it is not, then it's a lie of the world.
That's right. And that's the truth about you. If it's true about God, then it's true about you. And it's true about everyone. Not just you, not just a few. God gives himself to all, regardless of the appearance, regardless of how evil someone appears to be. God is still there waiting for that soul to awaken to his truth and to live as God intended, and to realize his nature is the same as God's nature. That the nature of life is the nature of self. They are one and the same. They're not two different things. And so we wake up to that fact, and the more, like Patty said, the more you do, the more you realize that, the easier it is to reject what the world is telling you. You begin, eventually, you'll get to a point where when you look out at the world and you see these things, you just smile because you know they don't know what the heck the truth is. They don't know anything about it.
You can laugh at it. It becomes something to
laugh at. You can laugh at it because they're only destroying themselves. We think they're hurting other people, but you can only hurt someone else if that person allows it. If that person, through accepting world concepts, well, then he can get hurt by it, but it's not that person doing it to that person. It's this person has allowed it. This person might be acting it out, but it's all driven by false concepts about what life is. That there's powers in the world, that there's things in the world we need to get, that we have only limited resources and we have to fight over them. All those concepts are world concepts, and none of them are true. And everything that you need can come from within you and unfold as your experience.
Like you say in the book, you just have to abandon the mortality tomb.
The mortality what?
Tomb.
Tomb. Oh,
I
the
like
tomb
that.
of mortality.
I read that. I thought, well, that's wonderful. Abandon the mortality tomb. Yes. But what you were talking about, is that what you were talking about in the other chapter about it's not the personal me talking to the personal you? That was in chapter 3 of chapter 3.
Yeah, that's right. It's not this personal me trying to tell the personal you what to do. Each one of us has it already within us. And the only place we can really learn it or really know it
is yourself.
Is within ourselves. Now, these intellectual ideas that we hear the words, we hear the lectures, we read the books. Those are all there to lead us back into ourself, where the answer really is. And it'll never be satisfying until you do that. And that's important to understand, because it's like Jesus said, if I go not away, the Comforter won't come to you. And that means you have to find that inner companion. Your inner God is your eternal companion with you eternally. Always has been, but until you're fully aware of it and fully working with it and in alignment with it, it won't function in your life. And it'll be as if you're cut off from it. So remember, yes, that scripture, those words are important in the sense that they're going to take you where you need to go. They're going to help you get there. They're going to inspire you. They're going to lead you. But the ultimate treasure is within you. And that's where every one of us has to spend time getting to know ourselves. And that's what meditation really is getting to know your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
And being comfortable with who you are. Not the human self, not comfortable with the human self, the human personality, but with the real, authentic self that shines through when we allow it.
It's God's presence within us. And you are your own teacher. You hear things, you read the Bible, you listen to video, podcasts perhaps, but it's always you that's directing your own orchestra, directing your own life. And only you are the one doing the test of truth, your test of truth.
Right. And it's like if you read a book.
Check in with yourself.
If you read a book and that book inspires you, you think it's the book that inspired you. But in reality, it's something in you that you allowed to come out. Mm-hmm. And the book was just something a trigger, exactly perfect, for your mind to allow you to let it out, let that inspiration out. Now you can get that without the book. Yeah. You don't need the book. But if you use the book, that's okay too. But just realize it's coming from you. It's the same with joy. We think that a certain conditions makes us joyful. But it's not the condition that's making us joyful. It's just that this condition in our minds allowed us to let that joy out. And so it comes from within us. All of it comes from within us. And that is what we have to discover in our meditations. And that always leads to this immutable self, this unchangeable self that has all the qualities of God in it. But when it appears outwardly in our feelings, in our intellect, in our thoughts and concepts, in our body actions, in our world experience, those are all constantly changing. Once the spirit comes out into the manifest, which is the feelings, the mind, and the body and the world, then all those things are constantly in in a state of change, not dying, not decaying, not growing, not becoming, but constantly bringing new experiences with the same qualities, the same capacities, and yet expressed in infinite variety. Okay?
Would you like to read the practice focusing on the invisible self?
Okay.
That's a
And
good
so
way for us.
the end of the chapter has a practice on the invisible self. Start with eyes closed, going back to the beginning of your spirit, to the beginning of creation. Okay, so one of the concepts is we have to realize we never began. We cannot be eternal if we had a beginning. Most people think of eternality as something that only goes forward. No, eternality means there never was a beginning. We've always existed because God has always existed, and we have always been a part of God.
And the eternal is because of eternality is change. That constant changing, the fact that things are constantly changing, is what makes it eternal.
Well,
You gave the
God
example
never
last time of
got
the
the
water,
God part,
the snow,
the
fog.
invisible part never changes.
Right.
It's only the visible part that changes.
Right.
Yeah. The outward expressions are in constant changes. And you're right, that is eternal because it's constantly changing and never dying.
It is never not.
Yeah.
It is never not.
And there is never an end to outward expressions. There's never an end to form. Spirit will always appear as form. Whether they're this type of form or another type of form doesn't matter. It's infinite variety, and it's always expressing as form.
I have a question.
Okay.
How does that intertwine with the fourth dimension, third dimension? I know you've always said you have to, your thinking has to be vertical and not linear. How do you incorporate that into the eternal as far as the dimensions go? Because you're changing. You are changing. That means you did have a past.
Well,
And you're changing. It means you could have a future. You have a future.
Well, yeah, you'll always have a future.
And a past.
And a past.
Because you've never not been.
Right.
And you've never not been perfect. You just forgot about it.
So the question is, how do we reconcile the eternal?
There is an elevation to progress, to ascending, to elevating.
Well, yeah.
Just because there's no beginning and no end doesn't mean there isn't a process of going from one dimension to another.
There is an unfoldment.
Correct.
See, it comes from within. We think the world tells us that it's evolution, but it's not evolution.
Okay.
It's the unfoldment of consciousness. And so we come into the manifest world, and then our consciousness unfolds little by little.
And envelops higher levels.
Higher and higher levels, right. And we're in this human state now, but then we're going to go beyond that human state because that's not the end. And then we'll get into our soul, and that's our main focus in this teaching, is to get into full soul consciousness, and so that we can begin to live out from that and develop our more angelic state. And then we will move beyond that, and we will throughout infinity have this unfolding of consciousness.
Is that your time continuum?
Is that time continuum?
Is that your time continuum?
Well, that's a little different story, but there's a tape on that.
It's chapter.
That's not
One
in
of the other chapters.
well, no, that's
Oh,
one
that
of the
was one
tapes
of-
we did for My Divine Light.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's called Bearing the Cross, I think.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
and it's all about the time continuum. Okay, so ask yourself, at what point did you come into existence? So here we are, back in creation, back with God before the world, so to say. And we are realizing we've always existed with God. And so what point did we come into existence? Never, because we're eternal. We've always existed. Now, our outward expressions have always changed. But there was no point where that started, and there's not going to be a point where that ends. Now, how long have you existed? Always. You've always existed. Now, you've come into this world maybe 4 billion years ago, or whatever it was, 2 billion years ago. But you've always existed. You existed long before the world was. It was like Jesus said, before the world was, I am.
So it's who you were before God.
Before God? Well, I don't think there's any before God, but with God, yes. Did your spirit ever start? We know our bodies had a beginning, yet now we know we are not the body. We are the I am who is behind the body. Did this mysterious I ever begin? Remember, this is a practice and we're asking ourselves these questions. Did this mysterious I ever begin? Is it possible we have always existed? See whether you can feel what it would be like to have always been alive. It's good practice to close your eyes and think about always existing. It gives you a feeling that is undescribable if you can feel the truth of it. Was my I am self watching as this body was going sorry about that, was my I am self watching as this body was going through the birth canal? Is it watching me now? This is your inner God called I am. We know our I am is not the personality because it is the thinker and it is not thought. It is the doer. It is not what is done. Try to locate where this I am is. See if you can feel it. It cannot be sensed with the 5 senses. It is not in the mind. This I am is your eternal self and the only real you. Even after you arise out of your meditation, watch yourself to see what part of this I am behind the mind and body is doing. Become aware of it as you move through the world. How is this I am acting? What is it, just sitting there watching? What's going on? What is this I that I am? What part is it playing in your life? How does it affect your mind, body, and world experience? Get to know it. Establish a relationship with it. Then watch it come alive in your everyday life. Gratitude with a watchful attitude will sprout into endless bounty. Okay.
Have you experienced this?
Yes, to some degree. Absolutely.
Well, tell us
Now,
your
I
answer.
wouldn't say, well, everybody's got to discover it for themselves. Because me telling what my experience is, that's my experience. But you have to have your own experience because it's the only way you'll really feel it. It's the only way you'll really know the truth of it. You have to get these answers for yourself. My telling you doesn't solve it. It just doesn't. Everyone's got to take the time and go in and ask, who is this I that I am? What is its function? What is it doing? Where is it located? It's not it's not something that can be put in human words. It's something that you have to go within and realize.
Just know.
It's the only way to really know it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yes, I've had that experience. I've had answers to those questions, but those are for myself. And this message is a big part of how, how I describe it. So it can't be said in just a couple words. It can't be succinctly stated in one sentence or even in a chapter.
For you, everything seems to come in all at once when you're downloading. I call it downloading. But you've had throughout your life many different experiences, which each time was another different awakening.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember my first one at 7.
Mm-hmm. We've all had them, and a lot of people forget that they've had these experiences, or they think, oh, that wasn't really real, or it was a dream, or it was, and we tend to just shuffle it off as if it wasn't real. But the more you spend time with yourself in meditation, learning what yourself is, not just sitting there doing nothing.
It's a confidence builder as you gain and move forward.
Absolutely.
And your relationship with God grows stronger. Mm-hmm. And that too. So you finally come to the point where you know that you are the, what's a good word for it? Authority. You are the authority of truth, of your own truth.
Absolutely. You're the authority over your life.
Correct. Yeah. I have another question.
Okay.
I'm going to save it for next week. You'll
Okay.
just have to wonder.
Okay, well, that'll keep us guessing till next time.
All right.
Okay, all right. Well, it's wonderful being with you.
Thank you all for
I
taking the
hope
time.
we've helped direct you in the right direction. So until next time, take care.